24 Public Work Session. This is Joseph Cilio, President of the Board of Education speaking. Thank you for attending in person or through Zoom. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Due notice of today's meeting has been served to all members of the board pursuant to the requirements of law. Tina, will you please take attendance? Present.
Present. Present.
Present.
Present.
Present.
At this time, may I have a motion to close the public session and open the budget hearing?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Dr. Sinha, can you please begin the budget meeting? Budget Hearing.
Sure. So tonight with the budget hearing, there is no new information. Everything that you'll see this evening is information you've seen before. Okay. We always start with our mission and vision. And again, you've seen this throughout all of our presentations, our budget we developed with the mission and vision in mind. So with the budget hearing, these are the things that we will briefly review because we've gone over this multiple times and really giving you an overview of what's in the budget for next year and spend a little bit of time talking about the contingency budget as well. Our priorities, our district priorities, they remain the same year after year. We tweak a little bit, but it really, if you look at it, we want to make sure that our school environment is safe and supportive for our kids. Our buildings and facilities are safe, clean, well-maintained. We want to maximize our space. We also want to make sure our instructional program, which is the heart of what we do, is we're constantly looking to improve that and making sure we offer our students with the extracurricular activities. And in the last several years, we always focus on technology, but even more so, particularly with cybersecurity and whatnot. So when we design our budget, we again look at our mission, vision, and our priorities. We definitely want to make sure that we look at the property taxes because that's where we get our major source of revenue. We utilize our reserves, and we have, we want to make sure that our fiscal health of this district, that there's a strong focus on that year after year after year. And then enrollment data, we just had a demographic study that we went over a few presentations ago. We use that information for staffing needs. And in ways we try to control our costs is just what you see up on the screen there. We really make sure that we're part of different consortiums. We are part of, like, in terms of the bid, with the bids, we utilize the state, county, village bids, those contracts and supplies. We also, we have probably one of the best credit rating in our district. We are AAA rating, which is the highest. And we always get so much support from our parent groups, which we truly appreciate. And then our transportation agreements, we work very hard. Our Linda Green in transportation, along with the business office, in terms of making sure that we have agreements with other districts with our transportation. So these numbers you've seen plenty of times. There's been no change to that. Our proposed budget for the 24-25 school year is $133,987,366. That's a budget to budget increase of 2.84% with projected tax levy and the maximum allowable tax levy at 2.54%. We are required to always present the budget in these three parts: capital, administration, and program. And you can see majority of the budget, more than 75% is under program, which touches our students. Okay, trying to use the clicker here. And this is the three-part budget, the pie chart in just numbers here. And these are other, again, these are different categories of our budget with the numbers attached to it. We have gone over this as well. So our proposed budget, it complies with the tax levy cap. It expands on our instructional program. We went through that in instruction part 1 and part 2. We have in here, like you can see with project-based learning, we have resources, technology upgrades, there's capital improvements. We're focused on the instructional spaces, our special education program, and opportunities for all students. The clicker is not working here. I don't, okay, here we go. Yeah, here we, Tina's there, she'll just, so, this is important to know. What happens if the budget fails? There are 3 options for the board. One is to present the same budget for a revote. The second is present a modified proposal for a vote. And the third option is adopt a contingency budget. Go back one. Yeah. So this is important. The contingency budget is for us, if we did opt for that, and what that would mean for us, it would be a reduction of more than $4.4 million. And the tax levy cannot be greater than the prior year's actual tax levy. So no increase in the tax levy is allowed based on last year, and last year's was 2.32%. And then all non-contingent items of expenditures, they will be removed from the budget. Okay, this is additional staffing and whatnot that we have put in the budget. They'll be removed. And then the board would determine what falls under the ordinary contingent expenses. And of course, all contractual and debt service obligations for 24-25, these are your contracts, they would remain in effect. So on the ballot, we have the school district budget and election of 2 Board of Education trustees. So here's our budget calendar, and today's May 14th, so this is the budget hearing, and then May 21st is the budget vote. And all this information is on our website, everything we've presented. We also created a one-page just a one-page flyer that really talks about major highlights of what's in our budget program, in our budget rather. That's on the website as well. So everything is there. So, we want to remind our community to vote. Again, our polls will open up at 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. It'll be right here in the high school gymnasium. And again, on the website, all information is there. If there's any specific questions residents may have, they could certainly call and ask any one of us.
At this time, are there any questions on the budget from the board?
None.
Are there any questions from the community? Can you just do us a favor, and if it can be focused on the presentation, because Mrs. DiCaprio is not here today. Thank you. That might be the case.
So what we do, this one I could answer. I could answer this question. What we have is, we transport our students to many, many school districts. That's outside of Garden City. So we work with other schools to combine routes. So where we can save money, but then also it might be a source of revenue for us. If we're transporting a student from another district, it's en route to the location. So, we have those types of agreements with other school districts.
I understand, it's like I've seen Garden City school bus at school, so that would be
That's fine.
Thanks.
You're welcome. At this time, may I have a motion to close the budget hearing and reopen the public work session?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. At this time, we're going to move to the presentation from the Special Education Advisory Committee.
Yes. All
Ms.
right.
Barbera, are you?
Well, yeah, I'm just going to introduce a little bit of this work, and then I'll hand it off to the to the advisory committee, which and Judy. So, you know, the Special Education Advisory Committee, we talked about it towards the, I would say mid last year, that this is something we wanted to engage in and really get all the stakeholders together and see how we can do things better within special education. So we started that last year, and I have to tell you this, this process, I think with the advisory committee has been a really good process. And Ms. Barbera and Ms. Hand have been co-chairing that with all the different stakeholder groups. And I know there have been multiple meetings and working groups outside of those large meetings with some really good recommendations. So, you know, I'm really eager to hear some of those recommendations tonight. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Barbera.
Thank you, Dr. Sinha. We're excited to share with you this evening. So we'll start by, again, just resetting our focus, our purpose, our why, the way we always start important work. And if you remember, board members, and some of you, of course, were good enough to grace us with your presence on this committee, that the purpose was really twofold, both to help to increase our school community's knowledge of all of the services and programs offered here in Garden City, as well as to formulate a set of recommendations. And the focus of those recommendations was primarily on ensuring both timely and effective communication. And we have those recommendations for you this evening. As co-chairs, Carrie and I wanted to ensure that this super team, which by the way was 35 people strong, remained really very engaged in the experience. At the same time, we felt that it was important to stay not just focused, but also flexible. And so the process that we used was different types of collaboration. First of all, the committee as a whole did meet 3 times during the year, once in the fall, again in January and February. 2 of those meetings were in person, 1 was virtual. And then I think this was really a hallmark of the way that we structured the work is we set about into multiple perspective teams. So what that really means conceptually is many times we worked in smaller groups for the purpose of really having deeper conversations, but we always made sure that those smaller groups were comprised of parents, faculty members, administrators, and in some of our cases, the best ones are students. It was early in our process that there was an understanding that this was not just about bringing individual multiple perspectives, but individuals trying to represent the perspective of their stakeholder group. So very early in the process, this theme of broadening our stakeholder involvement, kind of emerged out of the conversations. And there were surveys for both parents and faculty that were administered. You're going to hear about the results of those surveys throughout the presentation in the next 20 minutes. Finally, we had a subcommittee. We ran out of names. We called ourselves the final subcommittee that met to synthesize all of the conversations, to analyze the survey results, and to formulate a set of recommendations. At this point, I'm going to ask Lauren Casada if she could just share a little bit about that last piece, that broadening stakeholder involvement.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So as Ms. Barbera was just sharing, this idea of really broadening the stakeholder involvement was really a priority for the committee members. So therefore, to ensure that our recommendations were aligned not only to the members of the committee, but also the various perspectives within this school community, a parent and faculty survey was created. The parent survey was designed to ensure that all parents in the district could respond. So all parents could respond to that first section, And then parents of students with IEPs or 504 plans proceeded to an additional set of questions in the second section. And it's important to note that the responses from both the faculty survey as well as the parent survey were represented from all 7 schools in the district.
Thanks so much, Lauren. So now here it is. Drum roll, please. Here are our recommendations, first given to you just in terms of some broad themes. There are 4 of them. Okay, so there they there they are on the screen. I will say that enhancing communication really ended up being kind of like a larger than just with our parent community, but you're going to see some examples of actual product that we have drafted that we thought could accomplish that enhanced communication. Professional learning, always a big part of what we do in our schools, student engagement, and the students were just so articulate and so precise in helping us understand how they felt good about their journey and what we should consider for others. And then finally, some additional opportunities for some parent support. So for the rest of the presentation now, I'm going to turn it over to my partner, Carrie Hand, who is going to talk about a little bit more about each of these recommendations. And then she in turn will involve some additional members of the committee in giving you some potential next steps.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy. All right, so for recommendation number 1, we had enhanced communication with parents. When our committee discussed the importance of enhancing communication with parents, we focused not only on when to communicate information, but also how to communicate information. We recognized the need to identify moments throughout the school year that are imperative for sharing specific information with parents. We also had conversations about sharing information in a variety of ways, utilizing various platforms and formats to ensure parents have access to necessary information. As part of our goals for the advisory committee, we looked at how we can better communicate the different programs and services available to support students in Garden City. We believe that this communication should be done several times throughout the school year. For example, program and service information should be shared at the start of each school year. This would be a refresher of the information that was shared at individual CSE meetings in the spring. Those meetings tend to leave you with a lot of information, so this would be a nice way to just remind parents of the programs. Another moment in the year for this presentation would be before the start of annual reviews where we plan for the next school year. This session would highlight any program changes or additions with the goal of ensuring awareness and understanding before meetings occur. When we sent out our parent survey, we received feedback that parents are looking for more information regarding the MTSS process. This was a valuable piece of information for us to receive from the survey because we have presented on MTSS previously. Therefore, we know we need to consider different ways to present and memorialize the information so we can reach more parents. Another way that we feel we can enhance our communication with parents is by creating an interactive, user-friendly website. The goal of this site is to house all of the information in one place. Information on the website will be organized by the 4 phases of the special education process. An important component of the site will be to include who you should contact with any questions for each phase of the process. I'm going to pass this on now to Desiree Clemente, who will share some of the work that has already been created to support this first recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Hand. So this slide right here, I'm going to ask you, Judy, if you can just click on the infographic. So as Carrie mentioned, one of the that we heard consistently throughout was an ask for a user-friendly, accessible way for parents to kind of get a bird's eye view of the whole special education process. They wanted a place to find answers to common questions and a way to acclimate themselves to the language and the vocabulary of the special education world. So the first item that the team created and has subsequently been working to refine is this web-based interactive infographic depicting the 4 phases of special education. This graphic shows a simple outline of the journey from pre-referral through all the things related to being a classified student. The at-a-glance view of the phase provides parents with an overview of what actually happens in each individual phase along the way. Knowing what to anticipate and where things fall in a timeline is certainly something that we believe can help alleviate some of the anxious feelings parents may experience as they enter the CSE process. So ultimately, all 4 phases will link to a variety of other resources. Judy, if you don't mind clicking on the phase, if you clicked on phase 1, you would go to this link. Sorry, it's a picture there. If you don't mind clicking.
Whoops. Welcome back here.
I think you have to click the special ed words.
Yep.
But on the website, it would be actually the phase 1 circle. So ultimately, all 4 phases will link to a variety of other resources. Just going to wait for the visuals to catch up.
It worked. It worked.
It did.
I don't think we're gonna get there.
Okay, I'll just talk through it then. When you click on the phases, you're going to be taken to a second page where a variety of resources will be displayed. From the infographic, we can see that in phase 1, we include pre-referral, referral, and evaluations. So when you click on the phase 1 graphic, you'll be brought to a linked page that begins by defining each of the 3 substeps. So there's 3 little sections, and it's a quick definition of what pre-referral means, referral, and evaluations. And since there's an entire world that occurs before the referral process, that MTSS world that Ms. Hand was talking about, we've also included on that page a concise definition of MTSS and actually also a link to the more comprehensive MTSS district plan document. Below that, on each phase, there's going to be a frequently asked questions section. Between the collective minds of all of the members of our group, we tried to pinpoint the questions that we hear the most from families or that we think the parents might want answers to. And we expect that as this website is used more frequently, that the frequently asked questions section will grow and evolve over time. And that format will be repeated on each section of each phase. Unfortunately, we can't see the graphic here, but the last thing I do want to point out is that we included a glossary link. We know that we speak our very own special language in special education. Lots of acronyms, ICT, FBA, words, faith, things like that. And many people just stare blankly at us, we know. So to help parents begin to acclimate to the language, we added in a glossary of frequently used words, and below that is an acronym glossary as well. As we continue to flesh out each phase and subsection, we'll certainly continue seeking consistent feedback from the users who interact with these pages. Ultimately, the goal is to create a user-friendly, welcoming resource that parents find valuable and relevant, regardless of where in the process they and their children are.
Thank you, Desiree. Okay, on to recommendation number 2, professional learning plan for faculty. The first step of this recommendation is very similar to what we discussed for communication with parents. We plan to have moments throughout the school year to ensure that all faculty members are current on the programs and services that are available throughout the district. This is especially important for faculty members that are involved with students during transition years. Another part of our professional development plan will focus on the 4 stages of the special education process. All faculty members will participate in a mandated professional development, which will allow for an overview of the stages, highlighting essential components of each phase while fostering common and consistent language among the entire faculty. Following that mandated PD, a variety of flex PD sessions will be developed for each of the individual phases. These PD sessions can be led by administrators along with teachers, psychologists, social workers, and service providers, many of whom identified strengths in different phases in our faculty survey that we gave. Lauren Casada will now share some more information regarding the faculty survey and our PD plan.
So to create a professional development plan that reflected the professional needs of the faculty and staff, a brief but informative survey was created. As indicated on the slides, staff were asked to express their level of agreement with the following statement. I am informed about special education programs and services currently offered in the district. When examining the pie chart, note that the red and blue segments represent the percentage of teachers who strongly agreed or agree with this statement. The yellow and orange segments represent faculty members who disagree or strongly disagreed. The second question, as indicated on the slides, asked teachers to specify the phase or phases in which they would benefit from additional learning opportunities. When looking at the bar graph, it is noted that phase one, the pre-referral phase, is an area in which the faculty would like additional professional learning opportunities. The bottom bar, purple bar, represents the faculty and staff that feel very confident in their knowledge and capacity to engage in all phases. Every year at this time, our district PD committee comes together to develop a plan for professional learning offerings for the upcoming school year. Just last week, the PD committee met, and we are beginning to identify those opportunities within our professional learning calendar that would be dedicated to the special education professional learning plan.
Okay, recommendation number 3, enhance student engagement in the MTSS and special education process. Members of the Special Education Advisory Committee share a common belief that all students should be taught to think about their own personal strengths, areas of growth, ways they learn best, and how to set academic and personal goals. These ideas should be developed beginning in kindergarten and follow a continuum as students move up to a new grade level each year. This work can be accomplished starting with small shifts. In the primaries and elementaries, for example, students often begin the school year with a getting to know you activity. Shifting the language of these activities will help students to begin to think about who they are as learners. These resources that students will create can then be utilized to help them participate in the process. Participation can begin with students simply sharing a little bit about themselves in meetings and can grow from there. Mandy Stefankevich will now share some of the steps that we have taken towards this recommendation, as well as feedback that we received from some of our student committee members that helped to formulate this recommendation.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hand. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, especially to speak about student engagement. When I joined the high school 22 years ago, my main focus was on student voice. It always has been, and I hope that it always will be in whatever capacity I can. My staff at the high school over the last 7 or 8 years, many of us were trained in something called student-directed IEPs, and we had staff from the middle school trained as well. After that training, we really looked at how to make something functional and realistic for our learners and our teachers and drafted the one pager and really embraced the process of a one pager for our students at the high school. The example is on the board on the right, which was one template that's used. I'mDetermined.org is a site that really focuses on self-determination and student determination. So that's an example that we've used through the years. All of our students at the high school attend their annual reviews, their IEPs. So they complete that with their case manager prior to the meeting and really just reflect upon who they are as learners, who they are with their interests, what their IEP looks like, really to understand themselves. So my question had always been, what can we do prior to the high school? The middle school too began the one pagers as well, and I believe they implement that and students attend their meetings as well. Okay. So the question of the committee really focused more on the K-5. We had the pleasure of working with 5 of our students, 1 alumni and 5 current students, and their insight was pretty incredible. Jack, Michael, Emma, Aiden, and Michael joined us, were forthright, they were reflective, and they took us through their journey through the years from however early they began to where they were now, the culmination of their transition planning and post-secondary planning. And I just want to share some of their input because I think it's important to hear from their words. The student participant feedback cites third grade as the age that they knew they needed assistance, and they weren't performing like their friends. The learning rigor had intensified. They were more aware that people were coming in to help them, or they were being pulled out for some reason to address their needs. Some of them felt that they were never really given the reason why, or they were never explained what to do when they needed help. And they talked about how they started to create their own narratives with those unanswered questions. Some, it led to some difficulty with emotionality, some behavior, some just question marks, some anxiety. You know, we spoke often that as families, we protect our children. We want to make their learning process, their emotional process as strong and as positive as we can. The students shared that sometimes by holding off on those early discussions to protect our learners, we essentially created the anxiety we were trying to protect them from. We essentially left that silence with the unanswered questions, and then students themselves had to answer them. So one of our students shared that this could have led to some of the behavioral difficulties in middle school. I feel like exponentially, right, in middle school, that it's easier to be the class clown than the struggling learner. And it's an interesting concept to look at. So the idea that the earlier we involve our learners in their planning and understanding of self and their learning styles, the more opportunities we have to build them up as learners, self-advocates, communicators, and engagers, which is certainly our goal. From a high school perspective, we look at the transition and post-secondary plan for our students. The stronger they are with understanding who they are and more realistic with their goals and their vision for the future, the better off they are. So I want to thank our students. I want to thank Leah Dwyer and Michelle Nenzes, who worked on some primary and elementary examples of one-pagers. The other one that's on the board was the elementary. We also had some primary projects done too. And the students were incredible, what they shared, what they knew about themselves. They don't have their walls built up yet. They're certainly there. They love to be in the room to talk about themselves, certainly K through 2. And we want to capitalize on that. We want to involve them as best as possible and share in the experience with them. So our goal would be to have one-pagers K through 12. In whatever capacity or whatever ability of the student, obviously individualizing all aspects to the learner and their capacities is a primary focus. And then certainly working with parents to discuss their comfort and the developmental appropriateness of the student involvement in the meeting. At the high school, students attend every meeting. It's really essential in planning. And I know in the middle school that has grown as well. What about K through 5? And that would be the desire in whatever capacity our students expressed that they should be involved by the latest by 5th grade, transitioning to the middle school. And to be ready for that meeting, the building blocks K1, 2, 3, 4, so that the 5th grade meeting wouldn't be so overwhelming, should be considered. Student participation, like I said, in any capacity, let's presume competence that a child can handle an aspect of the meeting. Let's hear from them. Let's scaffold up their involvement as they age. And as I said, of course, working with families in their comfort level and the messages at home and in school. Using the same language with our learners to understand on their IEP, words like accommodations, modifications, transition goals, the language that we speak, let that be part of their language too, so that they understand it. Our students are incredible here. Our families are incredible here. And we just want to hear more from them in whatever capacity they can share.
Thank you, Mandy. Recommendation number 4, offer additional opportunities for parent support. While this recommendation can feel similar to our first recommendation about enhancing communication, we felt that it was important to list separately and highlight some of the ideas that we have based on the parent survey feedback we received. Our plan is to create systems and structures to provide learning sessions for parents on an ongoing basis, utilizing technology such as recorded sessions and creating podcasts. So some of the sessions can be more of an on-demand experience because honestly, you don't necessarily always know what you need to know until you need to know it. So our survey showed a clear need to provide sessions around the MTSS process As you can see, our results here show that 60.3% of parents that we surveyed would like more information in this area. Other topics will be curated throughout the school year based on feedback from all stakeholder groups. Another possible example from our survey with parents shows that 47.7% of parents would like some more information on how to have conversations with their child about their disability. Some of our parent support can also relate to the student agency work that Mandy was just talking about that we will be doing and how to have conversations with your child about how they learn best. Choosing topics will continue to be a fluid process based on the current needs we see for our community. Oh, and it looks like Judy got our website example up and running here.
Thanks to
Sure.
Matthew Samuelson.
I'll do a quick review again. I think this is me in the mic. Okay, so when you click on the phase one link, this is where it will take you. So if you scroll down to, I'm sorry, yes, to phase one there. If you,
I got
okay. And then at the top, if you click on the little computer, Judy, it'll show the parent view is my understanding. Like above the word glossary, up, right there. There you go. So as I had mentioned before, on each phase, it will have a brief definition of the subphases within there. So here we see the pre-referral process, the referral process, and the evaluation process. So kind of simplistic language, just explaining what each of those phases are. Because in this phase, we had identified that the MTSS process happens at the very initial piece of that, and it's an entity unto itself. We have linked the larger comprehensive MTSS plan for the district here, as well as a mini definition. We can go back. It's long. And if you scroll down here, we'll see the frequently asked questions section that I referred to. And so things like, what is a referral? What assessments or evaluations are going to be conducted? What are the guidelines for qualification for classification? Maybe the assessments one, Judy, you can click on. What assessments or evaluations are going to be conducted? A lot of times that's something we certainly hear from parents. They're wondering what kind of testing will be done in that initial phase. So we've linked some information. Again, we're trying to make it easy to digest in language that is understandable to everybody. And again, those most frequently asked questions. And then at the top right corner, the glossary I talked about. So again, we have special education terms. So all sorts of accommodations, alternative assessment, all the way down, you know, as many things that we could think of that are common language to us, but may not be so typical to our parents and community members. And at the very bottom is the acronyms that I was referring to. We speak so often in just all sorts of acronyms. So ADLs, AT, BIPs, and all of that. So we just want to make sure that we're introducing families for a way to get to them to initially acclimate to that language, because they're going to be hearing those words, you know, as we go through that whole process. So thank you for a second time.
Judy, I think down at the bottom.
Yeah, there.
Down at the bottom.
No, the
Other side.
you don't have. Oh, maybe because you were pressing that.
Right.
So thank you all for your sharing your insights. Without taking too much more time, I have to tell you that the work that Mandy has done over at the high school it wasn't just about having the kids at our meetings. It was then all the conversations that happened afterwards with Allie Moss and other colleagues of yours at the high school. So having that student perspective be part of this recommendation set, I think is just huge. And also the people that presented tonight all acted as liaisons from the multiple perspective teams. Again, we really wanted to stay focused, but we needed to stay flexible. And they did just so much work behind the scenes. But what they were doing was they were constantly looking to coordinate and align the work of the 35 members of the committee. So as I said, yep, 35 members, and they're all listed on the district website. And it doesn't want me to go there either. Yeah, there we go. So again, we thank all of these folks who just really helped us to pull this together. It was really significant collective efforts.
Thank you. Thank
Here, you want to use this? Here, take this.
Yours? It's fine. I can talk loud enough. Thank you, everybody, for your participation and engagement. I know making those committee meetings can be a challenge for parents and volunteers as well as the administration and teachers. So appreciate all the dedication, including some of the trustees who were able to join those meetings. This was a goal, I think, of the collective board for the last 12 months, was to get something in place to go through this process and see what we can learn in that process. And I think we've learned a fair amount. I would like to say, I think the website looks great. It answered a lot of questions that I had. I think one of the things that I think I hear, and I know some of the members of SEPTA are here so they can speak for themselves, but we hear people going through the process for the first time don't understand our process, the resources, the language can be all overwhelming. So hopefully some of those resources are helpful for folks. And I'm sure we'll get more questions, or we can add to the frequently asked questions page when others have feedback. So appreciate that's a first pass at it. I had a question. I know we talk a lot about communication and improving that. You know, one of the things that we've talked about, I think in the summer programs, was one of the first questions I think I asked when I joined the board. We end the school year. This is for all students, but particularly I'm assuming with students with IEPs. You leave school and you come back and there's an inevitable slippage in performance, whether it's just a lack of reading, a lack of resources, a lack of services, you know, and there's no real closing out plan for students before they leave. I know we have parent teacher conferences throughout the course of the year, but there's no kind of end of the year state of the state for kids with IEPs. And I look at the other board members. Is that something we can do with parents to make sure that they have the latest and greatest on where their kids are and their progress, and they have that so they can work with them or help them throughout those summer months? Because I remember Dr. Canoni saying that we see this huge drop off from, you know, June to September, and we're kind of fighting or swimming upstream. And I think people don't want that result. And so maybe it's a suggestion or a recommendation that we look into doing something like that for our parents. If you want to say something, Trustee Pino.
Parents do receive a final product.
It's kind of working.
Batteries are off.
The parents do receive a final product report at the end of the year. So they, for our students with IEPs who qualify for summer services, we actually use a criteria of regression and recoupment. So throughout the year, as students are on extended breaks, if their providers believe that they would suffer from substantial regression, they collect data prior to a lengthy break, December, February, April, any of those times. And there's a formula then to see how long it takes them to recoup the loss from that. And then we use that to determine whether or not they qualify for extended school year. So that's the special education students who would receive those services. Not every special education student qualifies for that. And then in terms of general supports, I think that would be kind of a conversation to throw to the larger group, but just from our standpoint.
Thank you. And then I guess one other question I had relates to the survey, some of the survey works that was done. I think it was on page, I don't know, it's not numbered, but it was on the survey page. There was a wide range of answers with regards to in people informed about the education programs and services. Was there any disparity between, you know, grades, schools, anything in the data that says we might be doing a good job at Locust and not, you know, at Hemlock, or we're doing a good job at the middle school, but not the lower grades? Anything in the data that you could share?
I'm going to pass that this way. I was not in the subcommittee.
Thank you.
I don't think there was anything that stood out as one building versus another or one level versus another, but it was more based upon certain levels are involved in different phases of the process more often than other levels are. The primaries, those children, those students there may just be at the beginning phases of the special education process. So those teachers may be more comfortable with phases 1 and 2 of the process. Whereas high school, they've been through the process many, many times. So those teachers may be more comfortable with more of the phases. A lot of our thinking around, especially the first professional development that we do with all the teachers, is making sure everyone has a consistent understanding and a consistent language that we use to share the information about all of the phases. Because sometimes people have an understanding of it, but they may just speak of it in a slightly different way. And then that causes confusion between teachers, but also between parents and service providers. So we're going to build consistency with that one pager infographic and then the professional development that we build off of that.
And I would encourage that we continue to do surveys as we roll some of these things out, because I'm sure there's going to be changes or improvements and new thoughts as it gets rolled out. Did any of I don't want to hog the mic. Does anybody else have any questions? Which I always do, by the way.
Excuse me, just to kind of build on, Joe, build on your question. Since the PD survey was obviously, I mean, at least from what you're saying, it wasn't anonymous. Has there been some cross-reference between building walkthroughs, formal and informal observations, so we could see if the staff perception is what the teaching staff perception is the same perception that the administrative staff has? So we could begin to build possibly a platform for intervisitation or sharing best practices.
I think that's in the upcoming steps of the process for sure. But initially, we have the information based off of building, so we can look and see if there's something in particular about a building and talk with the team in that building and see if there are certain noticings that they're finding through the walkthroughs. But also we are looking to have additional surveys, as Mr. Cilio said, to see if there are more individualized needs that we need to focus on. And that's where we'll build those flex PDs from, so that it can be really targeted for the staff into what they're looking for. And then also, where can we tap into the staff that have strengths in that area? Because we have really strong practitioners that can be providing some best practices to our teachers in different areas. So we'll tap into both ends of that through that process.
It's wonderful. With, just out of curiosity, do we give a learning styles inventory?
Not consistently. So that's where we're hoping this one pager will bring some consistency to that. And we are looking to have, like I said, that continuum of what we expect for our kindergarteners, our first graders each year, and how it will build and grow each year for our students.
We spoke about learning style inventories in one of our subgroups, which I really appreciate. We do use them at the high school as part of the transition assessments each year. There are learning style inventories. We spoke about specifically, which I had in my notes, but I didn't mention, doing that in 5th grade for all learners as well, really in preparation, that transition to middle school, coming up with a global learning style inventory. So again, students can take those building blocks of understanding themselves and then provide that information a bit more in depth before transferring to middle school. But I absolutely agree. I think that that's an essential piece in the process of becoming a self-advocate, understanding yourself, and then really making realistic goals for your future. So I hope to incorporate that for sure.
I mean, I also think too that a lot of times with the learning styles inventory, you could almost, I mean, obviously, we're not dealing with a juggernaut of New York City Department of Education, where we're dealing now only with 4,000 to 5,000 children, but we could almost craft something where a child could be put with a teacher that has that particular delivery style, that pedagogical approach, that it could really enhance the child's need, the student's need, sorry. And I also think too that one of the things that we take advantage of out here, I think it's outstanding, is the BOCES program. And that would give us, I think, a very nice insight into that with the learning styles inventory. This will all be linked into the data system. Sorry, just one other question. When we're talking about the parent learning opportunities, when do we have an idea of when they're going to be offered? Will they be offered after school or a time that's convenient for families?
I think we're looking to do a little bit of everything so that we can tap into everyone's different schedules. It's really hard, but that's where we're going to rely heavily on technology. Recording sessions, having different kinds of podcasts or little clips, having presentations posted really quickly after presentations are made. So like we said, it can be more of an on-demand if needed for parents, so they can look into the information when it's convenient for them. Nothing replaces being a part of the actual presentation when it's happening, so you can really ask questions and things like that, but having the information accessible and available, because also I may not think to go to an MTSS meeting until my kiddo is struggling. Then I might wish that I had gone to that presentation. So as long as any of those meetings we have, we can post some piece of it so parents can access it, along with who to contact if you have more information, because it's going to be different depending on what the presentation was about. And sometimes that's a hurdle for parents trying to figure out where to go next if I have questions. And that's something that we can eliminate really easily by just posting that information clearly with the presentations.
Thank you very much. I have to say too, it was really wonderful being part of this committee.
First, thank you very much. I know we get the weekly updates, and I know a lot of work has gone into this. People in this room and a lot of people at home. I guess the question I have is, if I'm a parent at home, when can we expect the proverbial rubber to hit the road? Is this something we're going to roll out in the fall fully? Because that's the implementation part is always sometimes the more difficult part, all the work aside. Is there a general timeline? Is it something we can expect in the fall?
I think these recommendations, we can start looking at how to operationalize them right away. I don't think it needs to wait till the fall, because you have to start planning for, and there's, I'm really pleased with all the website particularly. There is so much information right there, but each part of the recommendation, we can start planning for that now.
I just want to say thank you to all the 35 members. You all worked a lot and really hard behind the scenes. It was over 6 months, and I commend you all, because it was some late nights, but a lot of great brainstorming that went on. But it was really seamless in your thoughts and ideas and just stitching it all together. The one thing that really stood out for me in this report is towards the end, it says potential action items. And the one thing that really resonates with me that I really want you all to think about and take away and make it happen is identify moments throughout the year to highlight special education services and programs for these children. What are we doing that really makes them feel great about themselves? And what else could we be doing? Is there something we can change? Is there something other districts are doing? I implore you all to go out there and talk to your colleagues in other districts and really get our kids really excited about themselves, because it's really all about themselves.
I know we had the chance for the board to ask some questions. Does anybody in the auditorium would like to ask a question on any of the committee findings? I feel like some people here are probably involved in it. I don't know everybody who is involved, but if you have any questions, please state your name and address.
First of all, I appreciate a few of the questions that you guys had here before. I actually wrote some of them down regarding learning styles inventory. That was great. And then that is building. I think those really do tie together. As somebody said this before, had all my children go to every building in this district. I can tell you it's very different, teacher to teacher, building to building. So it's really important that we have some continuity here. I have to say, I don't want to sound ungrateful because I'm very, very grateful for any step that we take towards moving forward. But in about 12 seconds, I wrote 15 things. So a lot of them, you know, we have 4 findings here. I really, truly hope that this is just the beginning. And then we're going to look at this a lot more forward. And we're going to look at different, let's say, severities of children and their needs to understand where we need it, because I think Carrie, you had said, sorry, you said before that it wasn't what they didn't know, it was depending on the child and their needs to go. So hopefully we look at it in layers. Sorry, last thing. I do think the best thing that was found here, not necessarily about communication, everything, because a lot of it, I mean, I've said it in the hallway to many of you. Before, we've had a conversation 3 years ago about stick figures and little YouTube things, and acronyms are on SEPTA's website. But I do think the best thing that came out of this is the teachers' responses, learning what it is that they need. And I think, Tom, you actually said before when we said admin versus teachers, and being able to connect the need, what you can and cannot do, versus what they want to do, what they're being able to do, and seeing how we can connect those two things and seeing how we can support them and their needs. And in today's environment where, you know, the IEPs are just going higher and higher, we're going to need a lot more support starting from the bottom up. Mandy, I've said this to you before, that by the time they get to you, they're all wrapped up real pretty and they're ready for you. And they've been involved already in all the things that you want them to be involved in the, you know, in the past, and they're just ready, and we just have a nice, seamless way there. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments? Take that as a no at this time. I guess we're going to work our way to the curriculum articulation. Do you want to use this one?
So our next, topic for this work session is on give an update on our curriculum work. This is our 3rd year of this work. And this year, our focus really has been on, looking at interdisciplinary connections and assessments. So, and this year, I think we've met more than any other year around this work. And the progress we've made has been incredible, which the team will go over in a minute, and you'll see. And then we'll also talk about our focus for next year. So Judy, I'm going to turn it back to you and the team.
Righty, here we go. So curriculum articulation, where do we go? We always start with why, right? And so that purpose statement, remember, was crafted by our original curriculum articulation team in year 1. I'll give you a second to just go back and read that one more time. And of course, to notice that there are 3 intended audiences. So we want conversations among faculty, which will, of course, benefit our students and in addition, provide clarity for all stakeholders. So that's our why. This slide I pulled actually from the last presentation to the board, which happened in October of 2023. And I felt pretty good about the fact that when I looked at what we said we were going to do, we pretty much have done. And actually, we added a step. So we're rather accelerated here in Garden City. So these are the kind of things that you'll hear about in our report, which is being presented at this point by members of our curriculum leadership team. So if you remember, we said this back in October that we were going to be very intentional this year about continuing to build internal capacity. Year 3 of any initiative, in my mind, is a really, really important one. You're either going to hit the top and head back down the other side of the normal curve, or you're going to approach the top, build in some new energy, and then start that climb all over again. So I think the building internal capacity by partnering our curriculum coordinators and directors with our building administrators was a really important and intentional focus this year. So as you listen to our partners present, you're going to hear it done with two different braids here. One of them is thematic. So we're going to go through the themes of using windows of opportunity, something that you've heard us talk about in the past. Like, this is huge work. How do you decide what to do first, second, third? And so we say we watch for our windows of opportunity. You're going to hear quite a bit about cross-disciplinary connections and within the context of active, authentic learning environments in our classrooms. So that was a major focus this year. As the second focus, and Dr. Sena mentioned, was also on varied and balanced assessment design. That's taken a little bit longer, but we have some exciting, relatively new work to share with you around that. And then something that wasn't necessarily scheduled, and that is an idea around the really calibrating feedback on the design process. So those are the 4 themes that are now going to guide the presentation, and we're going to do it within the context of vertical articulation, starting in our primary schools. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to welcome partners, Christina Cardella and Rachel, to talk about this first part.
So the curriculum articulation process has fostered rich discussions among teachers and has enabled us to make horizontal and vertical curricular connections. We see a window of opportunity to use our experiences actually with the mathematics when we implemented illustrative math as our primary resource and also designing the mathematics units of study within our CAD framework as we move forward in developing our science units of study. Mystery of Science will be our primary resource in K-5. A few weeks ago, we brought together a team of teachers from all 3 primary schools to unpack a unit and identify what we call the organizing center of our curriculum articulation document. Those are, and as you could see up on the graphic, the big ideas, the essential question, the standards, and the disciplinary practices. We also, as a team, identified learning outcomes for each lesson and designed a culminating activity for students to apply their knowledge, which would fall under our assessment portion of our curriculum articulation. We actually have already began implementing the science units this spring. We see kids talking, thinking like scientists, and transferring the habits of noticing and wondering that they've been doing in math all along to seeing, thinking, and wondering about natural phenomena in science. In June, we're going to take these experiences and debrief with teachers about the new unit of study, gather their insight and feedback, and use this feedback to inform our rollout of new science units next year, led by our science coordinator, Ms. Rogasic. Ms. Lindsay will elaborate further about some of the work that we're currently engaged in.
Good evening, everyone. While working with the curriculum articulation team,
Wait, look at the eyes.
a window of opportunity to further develop our science skills by creating digital lab books using Book Creator. This digital lab book joins mystery science resources with teacher-created opportunities for exploration and wonder with nature walks, research skills, and curated videos. Within the Book Creator program, our kindergarten students have the capability of capturing their noticing through pictures, drawings, documenting their wonderings through the voice recording function, and being able to make connections, draw conclusions, and organize their scientist learning. It's also a great opportunity for students to share their work with their parents at home. When dissecting the units, we also looked for interdisciplinary connections. For example, in first grade, students will have an informational writing unit where they learn about a topic of their choice, gather information about that topic, and use the writing process to complete an informational published piece. Students will have the chance to apply the skills that they've learned within their writing unit when they write about an animal of their choice in their Animal Superpowers science unit. In kindergarten, our students will complete a performance task, which allows students to be creative while assessing their understanding. In this performance task, student pairs research an animal and build a model habitat, demonstrating their understanding of how this animal relies on its environment to survive. The students will present their designs and explain their models using their oral language skills. These skills, part of our comprehensive approach to literacy and one of the big 6 literacy competencies, are assessed through the use of our brand new Garden City created oral language student checklists. During our time together, we were able to identify many windows of opportunity to maximize learning for implementation in these science units this spring. And we have a video on the slide for you to see some of this in action in one of our first grade classes.
Wait, look at the eyes. Look at the eyes. Look at the eyes. Eyes are the same. No, it's a baby, and the babies don't have little feet. No, but the eye, I feel like the eyes
Students are discussing inherited traits from parents.
This one has much more.
I think it would be walking like a quail, to tell you the truth. The students loved that.
A lot of role play.
A lot, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so again, the focus there was windows of opportunity, but of course you already heard a couple of other themes creeping in there, didn't you? Okay,
It's the first year.
so this.
The only reason why I ask is because I know that from class to class and period to period, a little person comes and sucks out all of everything that they learned in the past 40 minutes. So they can't remember when they move on to the next period. But it's just a nice segue from animal secrets into animal superpowers. Hopefully they'll remember like one thing that they learned after, you know, countless hours.
All righty, moving right along. So our second theme is making cross-disciplinary connections, again, within active, authentic learning experiences. Also can be summarized with the acronym PBL. So we've invited Chris Hartigan and Jeanette. They're going to share a model that will be trialed by some second grade teachers again this spring.
At the elementary level, we also seized on a window of opportunity as we sought to make cross-disciplinary connections. Last year, Mrs. Mendonis invited a few administrators to her class for her annual Starbucks Day. I was fortunate enough to be in her class on that day, and witnessing that learning experience really set my brain on fire. A main focus of the second grade social studies curriculum is on community, and we started to think about how we might expand the notion of a Starbucks Day to teach and reinforce the main themes and content points that kids learn about in social studies. Over the school year, I collaborated with Ms. Lavelle, Ms. Mendonis, Mr. DeVola to design a second grade Main Street PBL unit. As the year progressed, Ms. Kaufman and Ms. Casada sought to align a second grade opinion writing unit with that PBL as well. And the video that we're going to show you now is the rollout video that we're using with kids as we introduce them to this project.
You will have the opportunity to dive into the exciting process to remake or develop their very own second grade class will imagine they are a group of builders, artists, and problem solvers as they remake or design their very own second grade street business. You can create anything you want, like a cozy book run wild. This project is designed to weave together essential skills across many subjects, from math and literacy to social studies and art, all while promoting teamwork, problem solving, and creative thinking. So get your thinking caps on and start dreaming up the coolest second grade street businesses ever. What kind of business will thrive on second grade street? How will it serve the community? What unique ideas will your class bring to life? Let your imagination and interests guide your choices. We can't wait to see the incredible ideas that will line the bustling sidewalks of second grade street. Let's create, learn, and inspire together.
So we were trying to drum up some business before showing the kids this, get some ideas going. And a second grade student suggested just a dog store where they go in and they just pet dogs. So I think our students are going to be really excited about this. And the video highlights a lot of interdisciplinary approaches, but just to name a few, students first start by walking around 7th Street with their families to interview neighbors, their friends, to see what they like about 7th Street. And then they'll figure out what improvements they might make. That practice is a fundamental launch to a true PBL. Then after they do that, they will move to the ideate and iterate phase of the design process, where they will do 4 design challenges. In these design challenges, that's where you'll notice the interdisciplinary approaches. The first, they'll have to design a logo and a store sign, which has digital fluency connections. It has computational thinking connections. It has art connections, which we've explored this year as well. Part of piloting some of this work, we were able to pair the second grade class with a high school art design class so that they could be the clients for the work that they were doing. So that was kind of a neat component that we were able to highlight just in a small microcosm of this rollout. Students will also draft a menu of goods and services and will write math story problems that tie into their math unit. And then another aspect of it is that they have to design a aspect of their business that will meet the needs of of a particular person. So this might be a person with a wheelchair. This might be a person with a dog that's visiting, perhaps. And in that, it's a really strong social studies standard about addressing the different needs within your community. So throughout the design process, students are using their oral language, the checklist that Ms. Lindsay was talking to you about. But in the final phase, it's all really cool. But in the final phase, it's really neat because the kids then will have the opportunity to write a culminating opinion piece in which they assess to an extent how successful their second grade makeover was. Which really circles back to the driving question of the PBL and creating an opportunity to enhance our second grade streets. So, I think the students are going to be pretty excited for this opportunity, and we're hopeful that in the rollout that we'll learn from our kids, of course, learn from our students, but also learn from our teachers to see what tweaks we could begin to make this, a really wonderful experience. Turn it back over to Jeanette.
I think it's worth mentioning as we were really reflecting on this process that crafting this PBL learning experience really demonstrated the value of the curriculum articulation process. I think back to Judy's opening slide about the why. We brought together teachers from both elementary schools, we had administrators, we had librarians, and together we had very deliberate, very consistent and productive conversations to design a learning experience that had cross-curricular connections that would really benefit our students. So we're excited to see what happens in the pilot this year and see what our kids create and what we learn from them and how we can build on in the future.
Okay, so we're moving to our third theme. Okay, and our third theme, this is something that, this has been part of the conversation since year one. Because you know that when you look at the Garden City created structure for units of design, there's a whole section that's called the assessment plan. But I have to say, we really got much deeper into that thinking this year, and I'm going to ask Matthew and Lauren to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Britt. That works. Oh, good. Yes? Good. Okay. Thank you very much. Obviously this conversation about curriculum design, one of the key attributes of it is it allows us to articulate exactly what skills and knowledge points we want our students to develop throughout each unit. And a critical part of that process is developing assessment tools that allow us to measure the degree to which students in our classrooms have been successful. So I'll start off by doing a bit of a review of some critical terms related to assessment planning. We talk about three different forms of assessment. We start off with diagnostic assessments. Diagnostic assessments are those that are designed to establish what a student knows or can do prior to encountering the unit material. It's critical information because it allows the teacher to have a clear picture of what the classroom needs, what the individual needs. It allows him or her to steer the course of the unit and each individual lesson to identify what needs to be captured, what needs to be reviewed, what needs more time. It's a pre-test, so it provides the teacher with a baseline data point to get a picture of where our students are, so we can compare later when we get to the end of our unit. Formative assessments are those things that occur throughout the course of the unit. These are activities and assignments take place during the lesson. And again, it allows teachers to make course corrections on the bigger topics. It helps to make sure that students are ready for higher stake assessments that come later when teachers are able to provide thoughtful and curriculum standard based interventions based on where they see need for more review. And summative assessments are those things that we typically think of as being tests. They usually come at the end of a unit, and they're designed to give a clear picture of the degree to which students have mastered skill points, knowledge points before moving on to something new. At the secondary level, I'm sure also at the elementary level, these are the bigger assessments that generally cause stress and anxiety. Very often they cover a great deal of information, but done properly and properly scaffolded, they don't need to be obstacles that are stressful in that way. Hopefully, we design summative assessments that are learning tools in and of themselves. Very often we see that students get their test back, they look at their score, and the conversation sort of ends. And we'd like to see our teachers develop assessments that are more learning experiences as well as measurement tools. So there's a variety of ways that assessments can be constructed. When we think of summative assessment, we very often think of traditional experiences that include short answer essays, long answer essays, Scantron forms, and things like that. And there's a place for that, but there are a variety of ways that we can learn about what students know and can do. And part of what Ms. Kaufman's will talk about in a second is how we can identify some more engaging practices. That said, we do know that there are places for traditional models of assessment. We certainly understand that our students are going to face a great number of standardized tests in their lives, whether it's the 3 through 8 exams or the Regents exams or AP exams, SAT and ACT. Standardized assessments aren't going away. We certainly appreciate the learning about how to organize time and study effectively for these assessments. We're not talking about getting away from these things. We're looking to find a balance between those traditional assessments and tools that might be more engaging and actually be useful for students to help learn. We're talking about authentic experiences that students can apply to the real world and can also be used to determine the degree to which they've been successful. And so Ms. Kaufman is going to speak now to a few examples of those sorts of authentic experiences.
Thank you, Mr. Samuelson. As Mr. Samuelson mentioned, we've been doing some careful thinking during the curriculum articulation process around assessments. And throughout every conversation and every assessment design, we've really been thinking about what is best for our students. And we ask ourselves, what should assessments really measure? Although the expectations for our students are clearly outlined in the standards, they're also rooted in what we value and believe as a district for our students' growth and development as learners. As Mr. Samuelson stated, while traditional assessments certainly have their place, we also strive to gain a more holistic view of our students. So by engaging them in relevant learning experiences, we can allow them to see the connection between their goals and the skills that they're acquiring as learners. This also enables them to transfer those skills across the disciplines and apply them to the real world. So providing students with different pathways to show their learning, they can develop a deeper understanding of content through critical thinking and creativity and a genuine desire to learn and grow. The picture you see at the bottom right on this slide consists of a team of 8th grade English, social studies, and special education teacher working alongside Ms. Belantic, Mr. Samuelson, and myself on an 8th grade interdisciplinary unit titled Unraveling Historical Perspectives in the Cage, The Craft of Memoir Storytelling. To provide a little bit of context, the essential questions for the unit are, how do stories from historical periods influence and shape our understanding of the world? And how does a family's history impact who we are and who we will be? In this unit, students explore the memoir The Cage, and they delve into the themes of hope, survival, and human resilience. While reading, they will also write personal memoirs to make meaningful connections to the text and recognize that storytelling about their own families and lives help shape the understanding of the world. So when we designed varied and balanced assessments for this unit, we thought about how we can incorporate learning experiences that allow students to use a combination of oral language and writing skills. Doing this helps students think carefully about their learning and see how they're improving at these important skills. By letting students explain and apply their understanding in different ways, we can get a fuller picture of what they truly know. The image you see on the left is called a Share Your Learning choice board. This was designed to provide students with various choices as to how they will demonstrate their learning. For example, at the start of the unit, there's a diagnostic experience that students create a mind map or a diagram that visually organizes information around a central topic using branching ideas and keywords. Here, students generate lots of ideas and explore their family history by answering the question, who am I? In the second image, you will see a rubric that was generated from the learning standard in mind. It clearly shows the students' expectations for proficiency and mastery of these skills before the mind mapping activity even begins. They know what the expectations are, and they're able to review those expectations with their teachers and peers. Then what's nice about the rubric is that they're able to utilize it throughout this learning experience so that they can track their learning progress. What's really nice about these mind mapping experiences and all of the experiences on the learning choice board is that they can be used across all disciplines and in various curriculum articulation documents. So it's not specific to this one document that you're seeing. It's important to note, though, that although there's choice in this choice board, we discussed with the teachers that there can still be parameters put in place with the choice board where teachers can really guide students to select from various learning experiences. This is really just one facet of the assessments that are included in this unit. In the third image, you'll see a space where we've included opportunities for students to self-assess and reflect. Self-reflection is a really important part of the learning process because it helps students think about their learning and enhance retention of a skill or concept while identifying their own areas of strength and opportunities for growth through questions like, why did you give yourself this score? Does this show growth in this skill? What aspects are you still developing or hoping to grow? We will continue to imagine the possibilities of varied and diverse assessments and provide our students with these multiple pathways to show their learning and engage in self-reflection. We want to continue to teach our students how to be curious learners and develop confidence while highlighting their individual passions and creativity. As the saying goes, if you can teach something in different ways, you've truly learned it. Thank you.
Alrighty, here we are moving into our last theme. And as I think I've already implied, this theme is really something that emerged over the course of this year. This was not necessarily planned. So I think we're going to start with Amanda. right?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Barbara. So throughout the year, teachers have been articulating their curriculum throughout all subject areas and grade levels. And that really led to the question of how are we calibrating our feedback to teachers and how are we really collecting all the work? So I want to provide a glimpse into our process and how the work has been organized. We needed a system that would allow us to see all that has been done in a central location. So we created a progress sheet that has enabled us to organize the work by level and subject area. Throughout the year, teachers have been sharing their curriculum articulation documents with administrators, and then those documents have been organized into this spreadsheet. So I think Ms. Barbara is getting it up. But I'll explain what the spreadsheet looks like. It's called our progress sheet. And at the bottom, it's in an Excel spreadsheet and it's organized by level and subject area. And the spreadsheet has been a really productive way for us to share the work that everyone has committed to throughout the year. So within the arts, I have, and I'll just explain what it looks like. So I have all of our courses out in like the left column. And then in cells next to that, I have all of the units that teachers have been working on. And it's shareable amongst all the administrators so that anyone in any building or level can click on any of the links, and then they have access to what's happening within the arts. So one of the examples that we were looking to show you was an example from our Sculpture 2 unit, where our teacher was part of the curriculum design team, and she created a unit within Sculpture 2, and any administrator would have access to that document. And it's a great way to share the curriculum in this fashion because it shows what learning looks like outside of your building or your subject area. Oh, there we are. So as you see at the bottom, there's the first page shows like the annotated document, but then it goes by primary, elementary school, middle school. And then if you keep scrolling, because there's a lot of work that's been done throughout the year, she will get to, there we go, music and the arts. And you can click right there. And then if you click on the first link, and this is something that any administrator in the district would have access to, so they would be able to see the work that is happening at the high school, even if you're a primary administrator, and you could find interdisciplinary connections or cross-building connections, and that is helping promote the district's vision and mission and what our goals are for these years. So at this time, I'm gonna turn the mic over to Mr. Steingrubner because he's going to share a little bit more about how we're calibrating our feedback.
Sure. Well, we've been talking about this is our third year. So the first year was the development of this CAD document, the template. And there were a group of administrators there. Last year was our rollout of training to all of our staff, where teachers were introduced to all of the pieces of the document. I know at the high school, we did a number of trainings and we went portion by portion so we could really break down what each step was in the process and using the new document. And then this year, we kind of let the teachers get to work and really start developing these documents. So what you saw there was just the art and music, but any one of these tabs down here contains dozens of documents for each of the different levels and each of the different subjects. And eventually, there's going to be thousands of these documents just, to cover the entire school. It's, and it would be paper binders, it would be binders and binders, but it's combined in one area. So we're at the process now as administrators, we're collecting these and we're reviewing these to see if these are what we're looking for. So where this came up new, which we didn't expect this year, I was giving some feedback to a group of teachers that said, this is our document that we worked on. And I gave them some feedback about one of the points on there. And they said, thank you, but that's not the feedback we received from a different administrator last year. And that's when the light bulb went off in my head to say, oh, that's something we never discussed. We never discussed as a team of administrators what we are exactly looking for in each of these segments of the CAD. We've talked about how to fill it in, what we're looking for in general, but like the format, like the big idea, which was up there for that one document, you saw a big idea was one simple statement, one big idea. But in one document, it's bullet points and it's a whole page worth, and it was too much. So it was, well, that's too much. That's not what we're looking for. So what we have to do is calibrate. We have to do training, just like we did with Danielson model when that started with teacher observations. We had to train together. We had to learn together on how to give feedback to teachers in that model for classroom lessons. And now we have to calibrate ourselves in giving feedback to the curriculum design. So that's the next step in what we're doing. And we're starting that process now with our training and with administrators. And that's next. That's where we are. That's right.
your piece. Up to you.
So, you know, as we are looking at our work this year and looking at for our next steps, for, the summer going into year 4 actually of this work, I think what Kevin talked about feedback, that probably is the most important with all the work we've done, the kind of feedback we're giving back to teachers. And, the summer curriculum work, that is, something that's going to look different this year because it's going to be incorporating the work we've done the last 3 years with the CAD work. And then one other area we started this year is the curriculum storyboarding. So which is what you see here. And this is something that we have started to do because if we, you know, we've done this heavy lift with the CAD work, but this work, your audience is really for parents and students. And I think that is really important of parents to get a sense of, well, what will this second grade experience look like for my child, or fourth, fifth grade, or different courses. So we have just started that, and our goal is to continue that into next year.
I appreciate that and appreciate your hard work and everybody up here's hard work. I know Trustee Panu, you had a question.
Just a comment and then a question. I think the board loves to see children interacting in those videos, whether it's Second Street, Second Grade Street, or any other project-based learning. You know, keep them coming, keep them engaged, keep them active, and have them join teams that gets that conversation going, because the most bright ideas come out of that. The question I have, I think the community and parents and children probably want to know of Trustee Janeco. Artie, what is your animal superpower? Can you share with us? Thank you for sharing.
There are no other questions. Maybe I'll open it up to the community if anybody has any questions.
Just one.
Sorry, Art.
No, that's fine. Just one comment from me. I'm just very eager to see this roll out. And also, I think the one thing that might be lost with, well, just to mention it, I think the most impactful thing about this presentation is its effect on the first presentation. I think this is going to have a dramatic impact on special education.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the community?
Can I just make one comment?
Sure.
I just want to really thank this group. You know, again, this is year 3, and the progress, the level, like where we are today, I think we really flew this year with this work, and everybody has worked really, really hard. Our administrators, along with our teachers. And I want to take a minute to thank Judy, because she's really, this has been a big bulk of her work while she's been here in our district this year, and just tremendous, tremendous amount of work. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Appreciate it. At this time, may I have a motion that the board adjourns the work session
Second.
All in favor? Aye. May I have a motion that the Board of Education opens a special session of the Board of Education?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Due notice of today's meeting has been served to each member of the Board of Education pursuant to the requirements of law. All the board members are in attendance. May I have a motion that the Board of Education accepts the following resolution? Be resolved that the Board of Education accepts the agenda for May 14th, 2024 special session as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Are there any questions from the board on the agenda?
None.
To make more efficient use of the meeting time, the Board of Education authorizes the use of a consent agenda as part of the meeting agenda. Consent agenda allows for one motion to approve multiple items as such items are identified on the agenda. The President of the Board will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda and will ask if board members wish to have a discussion or clarification on any specific item contained within the consent agenda. Following the discussion, the board then will vote on the consent agenda motion. In addition, a board member may request to have any item removed from the consent agenda in order to vote on the motion separately. At this time, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes business of the board items E1 through E3.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. May I have a motion that the Board of Education accepts the following resolution?
Second.
Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby terminates the employment of the probationary employee named in the attached confidential Schedule A, effective June 30th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Future Board of Education meetings. The next Board of Education meeting will be a regular session on Tuesday, May 21st, 2024 at 8:15 at the Garden City High School. I'd also remind everybody that the budget vote is the 21st, right? Same day. So please get out and vote. There's also, as Dr. Sin has mentioned, there's 2 trustees up for election as well. So please vote on the budget and for representation in the schools. And this time, may I have a motion that there be no further business before the Board of Education and the meeting be adjourned.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.